Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and I'm going to be joined in just a second by Ole Miss former player and legend Tim Thomas to talk all about rebounding the basketball and what we think about that as well. But I do want to let you know that the Grove Collective has started a new campaign to raise money for 2025 and beyond. And it is called the March to Victory campaign. And what it is an NCAA tournament style bracket competition that pits states against regions, bidding against each other, a bracket style tournament to see who can give the most to the Ole Miss NIL program. You have until the 18th to donate, and everything that you donate up to a certain amount of money will be matched, apparently, by Realtree. You see codes at the bottom of the screen at www.thegrovecollective.com/March to Victory. You can get the codes and all of that stuff in there as well and donate and help the Grove Collective out. Anyway, Tim Thomas, Ole Miss laid an absolute egg at Georgia. Now, winning on the road is difficult. We shouldn't be surprised that Ole Miss lost a game, but the manner in which they did it, you walked out of that not feeling great.
Yeah, it made a big difference with Morrell being sick. They say was throwing up in a garbage can near the bench there, so that's not good. I hope he's okay. But yeah, we had all kind of chances here. They say if we'd have went to Georgia maybe and won and beat A&M back at home on Saturday, then maybe one, maybe two games in the tournament. Several of the bracket guys were saying that we had a chance to be in the tournament now. And we're going to talk about it more, I guess, the NIT possibly, but there's a lot more to the NIT now than it used to be, so we'll have to look at that later on.
Yeah, this was the game where the NCAA hopes for Ole Miss, basically it became win the SEC tournament or go somewhere else. I mean, you're not going to be able to likely make the tournament. I think the net average for Ole Miss is about 78 or so. So we'll see exactly how that goes. But as the season went on and you had the hot start from the basketball team, they shot the ball incredibly well. They had a 4-guard lineup that was causing problems in January. I think Ole Miss had 18 wins on January 30th or something like that. But coaches in the SEC are good. They're good at spotting weaknesses. They're good at trying to figure out how to beat you. And what they figured out, Tim, was the front court for Ole Miss was essentially non-existent and a liability, and they just attacked that through our switching defenses and everything. We had trouble defending out on the perimeter. They were easily getting rotated shots to get three-point shots. The lane, once it was empty, and Musa Cisse or Jamarian Sharp were out guarding people on the perimeter, they attacked that. Basically, these SEC coaches figured out that, hey, we can just take advantage of Ole Miss's lack of a front court.
Yeah, Cisse and Sharp, I think they had good effort. It seemed like they really tried, but whatever reason, I don't know if they didn't work on it enough or what, but all the pick and rolls seemed like a simple thing back in my day, how to cover it, but it seemed like we would mess up several times every game and just wide open layups and dunks and so forth. So it's something we definitely didn't do well last night either. We didn't do well. It was a hard game to watch, a hard game to, we came back and had chances and went ahead and got really close. And just when it comes down to it, we just didn't have enough scores. Our defensive deficit we talked about all year, rebounding issues, it all just came to fruition. We just couldn't get it done. We did well the first year, like you said. We did good for a little while, but these last months or so, we just really struggled.
Yeah, and you have a situation where Jamin Brayfield, actually, he was the one Ole Miss player that had a pretty good ball game against Georgia. He's a typical stretch 4 type player. He's being asked at times to play 5 because of that weakness that Ole Miss has at the 5 position. Alan Flanagan is a mid-range jumper 3, essentially. He doesn't give you anything outside the arc, really, and everything that he gives you is at about 15 feet. He's kind of, I forget the player that played for Kermit Davis, but his mid-range game is his game. when Matt Murrell is not in the lineup, the offense struggles. And I think Juju Murray can be a really good player out on the perimeter, but it just doesn't. It's like a mismatched jigsaw puzzle is the way it looks and the way it's worked out.
Yeah, with Morrell not in the lineup, things just don't. The ball sticks and a lot of one-on-one. Who wants to go one-on-one, or do you feel good, or give it to another guy? And then the Flanagan had a tough game. I think he had a hamstring issue, so he was like 1 for 8, and he shot a few free throws, which was good. But Brakefield, I enjoyed watching him last night. He really did well on offensive end. I did say offensive end. I didn't mention defensive end, but he did well. He stepped up. He got his points. Juju did good. So just overall, Morrell not being there, we just couldn't score enough. You got to be a great defensive team. You got to be a great rebounding team. But these days, as you see with the Alabamas and Kentuckys, you got to score a lot of points. And last night we just couldn't score enough to beat Georgia over there in Athens.
Man, I would give my heart for a Raheem Lockhart on this team. I would give my heart for a Murphy Holloway, one of these old bangers back in the day. The Andy Kennedy team that went to the second round of the NCAA, they had Murphy Holloway. They also had Reggie Buckner, but Murphy Holloway was that banger and the guy that if the ball was in the air, he was going to get it. This team, I've wanted my whole life to have a 7-footer on Ole Miss's basketball team. We've had this conversation. And after this year with Jamarian Sharp and Musa Cisse, give me a 6'10" guy that's willing to bang. Give me a 6'9" guy that's willing to do the work and the ability, because athletically they might be in a better shape than these overly tall players potentially.
Yeah, you're right. I believe Beer's going to hit the transfer portal and get those type of guys. That's what we talked about. I see that happening because he understands that he's tried this 7'5", 7'1", 2 guys, and it's just not exactly what he needs for his defense, the way he wants to play defense, the way he wants to block out and rebound. That's what he's known for. Mm-hmm. This year, it just didn't happen. I know he's frustrated. I'm frustrated. Everybody's frustrated. We're all frustrated. So, it's something that we have had to deal with, and it's really showed up these last few weeks of just a lack of defense, lack of rebounding several times. And you saw him, the shot was made, and then the ball was right here, and everybody just sat there and looked at it, and they had a guy come in and put it back in with a second left. Some of those things are going to happen at times, but seem like it happens a lot with this team. I'm not sure. I don't think there's any dissension in the team. They seem like they're playing well and they like each other. Just sometimes on defense and rebounding, that extra effort that it takes, and it does. It takes effort. Rodman, let's think about Rodman, 6'8", they call him Worm, skinny guy. You don't have to be a big old bulky guy. You just got to be willing to put forth that extra effort and go get the ball. You can't just stand there, block your guy out, do it right, go up hard, then go get the ball. Don't just stand there and watch and wait. And we have that sometimes. And I think Beard, when he's a scout, these transfer portals coming in, he's going to look for guys like you mentioned, the big bulky guys that can take up space and go get the ball. They don't have to score a lot of points, but we need them inside to take up space and to get the ball and get it to our scorers.
Yeah. And, I think I was on a show with Dalen a couple of weeks back, and I made the comment, and I genuinely believe it. And I don't mean this necessarily in a negative sense, but this might be the most Euro-style Ole Miss basketball team that I've ever seen.
Are you saying we're soft? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yeah. It's finesse. It's not soft. It's finesse. They're not willing to do the bully ball stuff.
Yeah, it's I call it soft. I understand what you're saying. It's some of these guys and on offensive end now, we've talked about, they love that offensive end now. They love to make their plays and step back threes and someone to set a pick and let them go over. And Juju loves to go forward and back up, and he's good at that. They're good. We got some good offensive players. I think they're not as good as they think they are, but on the other end, they take time. They take it off sometimes. They take a little vacation down there, and I know it tears Beers up, but he don't have anybody else to put in. It would be nice, like on the football team, you get this competition that you have to really fight. But the bench we've talked about it. Brandon Murray hasn't showed up much this year. DJ Caldwell, it just hasn't happened. He needed those two, and the freshman hasn't come through. The Cowherd kid hasn't come through. Just no one on the bench has stepped up to really give competition for these guys to think, hey, if you don't get it done out there defensively, we're going to take you out. And that just didn't happen. I think next year it'll be a priority for Beard in the portal to make this happen. So we got competition. Everybody has competition. Iron sharpens iron to make them better.
Yeah, go find a Kenny Williams. Go find a Murphy Holloway, somebody that's not going to score 13 points a night, but they're going to give you 4 or 5. They're going to rebound the ball, and they're going to make the job easier for your 5 player who Ole Miss is bringing in. John Bowl. He's a McDonald's All-American. He's a really good basketball player, but he is still going to be a true freshman, and he's going to need to put on a little weight. You need to go find a banger, in my opinion.
Yeah, he needs several of them. He needs several of them out there to take up space, and that's what he's going to do. He has so short a time to get these guys in. We talked about it. He just a few months. He was hired, and quick. He's got to do this. He just had to get the best available. You know, we talk about recruits of Kiffin. Maybe you don't need this or need that. The best available. That's what he got. And a lot of them ended up being guard type players that they were not bangers. They were not rebounders. And then he got the 2 big guys inside and hoping he could help them and teach them some offensive moves. I mean, just do anything to help, like the guy from Georgia last night, Chua. He backed people down, CC and Sharp, and put the ball in the hole. That's so important. We don't have anybody do that. We really don't. Occasionally, once a game or so, they'll try to make a little play, but it doesn't look pretty, and they travel. They just not offensive minded, and that's okay if they get in there and rebound more. They just don't do that either. They get in foul trouble. These 2 guys at times, just like the Missouri game, I thought Sharp had a great game, and I think a lot of that to do with, I understand his mother's sick in Kentucky, so there's something to do with that. I thought that was a cool thing. I heard that the team went out to the airport, Beard and Pinkins and Sharp went to visit his mother. I don't know the story, what happens, how sick she is, or what the story is, but they had a prayer before they left. I thought that was pretty cool. That brought the team together. So that's a good story. So there are a few stories. This team I like the guys. I think Beard loves these guys. There's no reason not to. It's just for whatever reason, he had a short time to get some of these guys in, and everybody does something well. You know, I do something well, you do something well. We have talents, and some of these guys, their talent is not on the defensive end. They love the offensive end. They love the show, and sometimes, like Flanagan last night, he wasn't hitting. He was throwing up bricks, and we had a chance. If he could have hit a few of those, I think we could have made it real close, but he didn't. It was just so happens that Juju hit that half-court shot at the end. He make it closer, but let's beat A&M this Saturday. It's a senior night. It's kind of interesting to see what seniors are going to show up. I've heard through the grapevine there's going to be 5 of them going to show up. There's several of them that, you know, have a COVID year. So we'll see how it goes this Saturday and see who stays and who doesn't. The transfer portal is going to come into effect for sure for some of the guys that didn't get to play much this year. So they may be leaving, and Beard may want some of them to leave. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, and whenever you come back on the show next week, we need to kind of address what the NIT rules are, because they have changed that. So it might not be a slam dunk that Ole Miss is going to be in the NIT because of those rule changes and things like that. But we'll study up on them and let people know before the SEC tournament. I think it's an option. I think the NIT is a likely landing spot for Ole Miss. I don't think that Ole Miss should continue playing basketball if it's the CBI or something like that. I think they should decline that bid, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's a little more to it, and we'll talk about it more. But there's more to it than used to be. Used to be they would just pick the next 2. So there's more to it. There's net comes in, the matrix, all the analytics that comes into effect. And of course, money comes into it. Who's going to have the crowds? Who's going to bring the money? That's a big part of it, as always. So we'll see how that works out. But it is a little different. I know you don't just automatically say, "Well, we won 20 games, you're in." You did this, did that. So we'll see how that goes. I'll look at it, try to. You too. We'll study it, and by then we'll play A&M, and we'll see what day we're going to try to do it. I assume that Ole Miss will play on Thursday in the SEC tournament. We need to beat A&M to be sure. We beat A&M Saturday. That could be a good game. I don't know if it's really counts anything, but it does count for the NIT if you want to go to it, and it does for seeding for the SEC, whether you play on Wednesday or Thursday. Hopefully we play on Thursday and have a good win there. We'll see.
Yeah, I think we should probably next week plan on doing a Friday show. Just because that way we'll have the first game of the SEC tournament. And if it's a one and done, that's a completely different conversation than if you're playing that Friday night as well. And
hey, we could win it all now. We could win it all. Back in 1981, as I remember, I was a part of it. 1981, no one thought we was going to win it, about the same type record, and we went in there and then nailed 3 games in a row. So in 2013, Marshall Henderson's crew, I think Murphy Holloway and some of those guys, they won it all. So it could happen. I don't see it happening this year with this team, defensive woes and rebounding, but anything can happen these days of time.
Yeah, and it should be interesting. A lot of it's going to deal on where Ole Miss exactly falls in the bracket and who they're having to go through. They want to obviously avoid like the Tennessees and the Auburns and the Alabamas.
That's for sure.
And you're kind of hoping it's like LSU, South Carolina. That's your path. If that happens, you can build a little bit of momentum. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Anyway, thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen of the day. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and YouTube. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day, your team every day. All right. Tim Thomas, join us talking Ole Miss basketball as well. Thank you very much, buddy. And we'll get together next Friday. It'll be the next time we talk about it. We'll talk about the A&M game and more specifically that first tournament game.
Good deal. Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy.